After the victory of the Germans in World War I, revolutions happened in France and United Kingdom. This cut off our primary trading partners and debtor nations, preventing the American Roaring Twenties from ever happening. Instead, we slide into brutal, prolonged economic depression that lasts over a decade, far worse than the Great Depression. By 1936, the country is fractured, politically radicalized, and on the brink of the Second American Civil War. And in this Civil War today, we are going to pick the side of MacArthur. So let's start. We have slightly equipped 26 divisions, but we also have 220 factories at the start, and almost all of them are civilian factories, which is just massive. In construction, we'll go and build infrastructure in the middle of our country, and later on I will tell you why. Meanwhile, we already have the Social Security Act focus in progress. As you also see here, our focus tree for now is pretty limited, to say the least. The situation is slowly getting out of control as Black Monday hits America, and the blame game begins, which well gives us a ton of debuffs, on top of the ones that we already had. After the failure of Social Security bill, we had to introduce the new Garner-McNary bill, while everything was getting out of the control. And well, the government started actually noticing that, and multiple crackdowns started across the country. And well, we were right. In February 7, 1937, the War Plan White was activated, making MacArthur the leader of the United States. Later on, he gets approved by Congress. Few days later, in February 13, the country has already collapsed into four parts: the Workers' Congress of America, American People's Government, and the rebels in California. We got 30-day deadline to fix the country. Everyone already knew it's not possible, so instead I started recruiting militas in the most populated places. Also, very important thing is that our first target is going to be the Californian rebels. Our original 1920s war plan needed a change. We had three options on that. One was just to abandon the plains, second one was to retreat to Denver because the Washington was too vulnerable. Third one was not to give an inch. Out of all of these, MacArthur chose the option of retreating to Denver, which will help us to follow our plan of defeating the Californians, which later turns out to be a great plan. While 30-day deadline was active, the National Guard was still operating on the enemy territories, which helped us gain control over Texas and few other states, which gave us great opportunities to recruit their militias and also have a starting advantage. In army reform debates, because of our situation, out of the three options, we landed on Craig's reform plan, which mainly focused on military. And in March 15 of 1937, the war begins in Oregon. It was clear that American Civil War has started. After the war started, we started proceeding with our mission to capitulate the rebels in California. But for our surprise, they were pretty strong, and we also did not have enough troops to cover up Workers' Congress front and also the American People's Front. We thought that we made a great encirclement of at least one division in California, but later on, after they pull up their troops, this turns out pretty horrible for us because our divisions get encircled. We do take San Diego, but shortly after that, it falls again into the hands of the enemy. The enemy was also pushing towards the Washington state, which we could not do anything about. Meanwhile, we were slowly but surely recruiting everyone we could to cover up the front lines in the east, but also we should not forget about the Californian front. The Californians were starting pushing us after their small victories and encircling our divisions, which turns out pretty bad for them because they spent too much military equipment on us. That was shot in their own leg because they couldn't recruit any more militas because they had only one state under their control. But we could, and slowly but surely, after we were recruiting our militas and we were also making normal divisions, the balance of power shifted towards us. And you still don't have to forget about that we are fighting a two-front war. Actually, probably three-front war. And this is going to get worse later on. Now, as you see here in California, their troops don't have any kind of equipment or manpower. Their attacks were not working on us. We did get pushed back of the state borders of California, but this didn't stop us, because later we started our own counterattack. While choosing which front we should focus on, of course I chose the Californian front to get attack and defense against them. Now, once again, we were cutting off their divisions, a lot of them, and now we took Los Angeles even. Our troops were moving towards San Diego, so their troops that we got into encirclement, or half of an encirclement, did not escape from a port. But that does fail because of our lack of divisions. We still managed managed to close up few divisions there. And also the most important thing is that we actually managed to take Los Angeles out of their hands, which is a very big port and very big land and very big city and very important city. And also this unlocks us the Pacific Navy, which we will also use later on. As you see here in San Diego, we still managed to close up 3 or 4 divisions, which was pretty cool. And you don't have to forget about their lack of equipment, which still is true actually, and they still lack of equipment. In the eastern front lines, we make tactical decisions to retreat because all of our divisions, well, the big part of them, were on the brink of getting encircled, and after that encirclement we would definitely lose. We could not afford to lose that. And news came again from California. Our troops managed to take Sacramento, and we were slowly closing another chunk of the Californian divisions in Washington state, at least the part of the Washington state that they actually have under their own control. But they still had the port, so there's no reason to celebrate it for now. But what we were also doing, we were slowly moving towards the San Francisco. If we took that city, we would secure our victory against the Californians, and after that we could manage to send our troops towards worker union front line, which they were actively pushing. And if we will get the 44 divisions to their front lines, they will definitely stop doing it. And also think here, yes, we do not have the Great Depression modifiers now, and yes, we took San Francisco, and now our army is free to go and cover up Workers' Congress Union front line. Our tactic was pretty understandable. We were planning to, well, attack Worker Congress Union first, we capitulate them, and after that we focus on the American People's Republic. That was our plan, and that worked out pretty well for us. Despite the volunteers and tanks that the Reds had, of course the tanks were French, not their own, we managed to pull off a lot of encirclements on the front line with the Workers' Congress of America, and little by little, making a lot of encirclements turned out pretty bad for them. They slowly ran out of their own divisions, and we started pushing towards Chicago. We took the city, and well, we retreated later on after, but we again came back, and now nothing could stop our military, nothing could stop our well-equipped 44 divisions that were planning to put an end to this madness caused by American civilians. And well, the victory was at hand, you would say, but later on you will see why it's definitely not. We still have a lot of work to do. While we enter Detroit and we free up all of the state, and we also push towards Washington to take it actually, we get special news from Mexico. Mexico has attacked us, and this is pretty bad for us because, again, if anyone doesn't know, we will have Canada fighting against us too. Canada and all of Entente and also the New England. So now I was racing against time. We needed to capitulate the Workers' Congress Union as fast as possible. For that, we send our troops to New York City, and our cavalry divisions to New York City, marking the end of the war against the Workers' Congress, which means that full might of American military could focus on the Mexican and the Confederate front lines. The Mexican army was still pushing us. While I was confident with the South rebels, the Mexicans were pretty good actually, you know, and they also had a lot of divisions. And because of that, we get into few encirclements here in Mexico, and the Mexican divisions also pushed through California, which was bad. But at the same time, our troops were pushing in the south. We were slowly but surely getting to the administrative borders at the start of the Civil War that we had with the American People's Republic, and we actually cut them in half. We had one division that was holding on for dear life in this one port, one big city, but later on that turned out to be very good decision making from me because I did not retreat them. And what I was actually doing in Mexico, I was letting them capture California and Washington and, well, getting deep into our country. Why I was doing that? Because California, I remind you, was not our core state, which means that if they take it, we don't get any kind of capitulation, but instead we could enter and, well, cut off Mexico itself, and after that we could just capitulate them. And as you would guess, or would not, that is exactly what we do. And here on the south, we actually managed to close a very big chunk of the south divisions, and now they only had Georgia and Florida under their control, which is going to change a little bit later here. And our divisions managed to cut off Mexican troops from actual Mexico, and our troops slowly walk into Mexico City. We take the capital of Mexico, which Mexicans left undefended, and after that, the goal was just to reach the Yucatan, and after that, they would definitely capitulate. Our divisions, even though encircled, reached Yucatan, and after that, Mexico capitulated. Definitely, all of might of American military would be concentrated on the rebels, American People's Republic. But again and again, we get another news from New England. They're starting justification of war against us. Well, a small reminder that only Denver territories are our cores, which means that we are pretty good here, you know. We don't have to care about that much because the terrains there are pretty bad and we could finish up the American People's Republic pretty fast, and that is what we do. We actually cut off Americans People Republic on, I don't know, 6 parts, and after that, well, guess what, they capitulate and they give all of their territories to us. Now my goal was actually very interesting one. I wanted to actually capitulate New England first. That's why I collect all of my troops and I select the mission for them to capitulate New England, which they do, which was a pretty good decision. And well, after capitulating them, we definitely have less divisions on our front lines and also a border, a normal border with the Canada. It's not about really the border, but the fact that we are now kilometers away from the capital of Canada. And as you see here, our divisions encircle Boston, the capital of New England, and take it, which capitulates New England. And also a very interesting thing happened here and very good thing for us. All of the Canadian divisions actually got encircled in United States. And this is when I have this genius plan to just relocate all of my troops there, close as much encirclements as possible. It's definitely true that they will escape. There is no way they wouldn't. But of course, we could try to take as much as possible before they escaped, right? And that is exactly what we do. And also, very importantly, our divisions take Ottawa out of Canada's control. And yeah, that was a small victory that boosted the morale of our army. And our forces also moved towards Toronto. We were slowly recovering from the Civil War and slowly integrating all of the territories. It was becoming more clear that Canada's faction is just not going to win this war. They could not win this war, alright? They already had a bunch of their divisions into encirclements, they were pushing into deserts, and we also had a lot of military factories that were producing infantry equipment like crazy. That's why we managed to deploy like more than 48 divisions, and well, at the end, we pushed them out of the American lands, and we get the option to peace Canada because we were already into Canadian territories, even like that, but we will teach them a lesson. That's why we don't stop, we make even more encirclements, the Entente divisions come, and well, the elections were suspended, we take Minneapolis, we completely free up all of Canada, and after taking Ottawa, Toronto, and well, all of the big cities of the Canada, and also encircling pretty much all of their divisions, they capitulate. After the victory in Civil War, America needed a reconstruction, both political and economical sectors. MacArthur does not step down as president, which makes him, well, the American Caesar. And I can compare him with Homelander. I think they're pretty similar with MacArthur and Homelander, but whatever. You could talk about it in comments. I do think that they are pretty similar. After our victory against the Entente, we gained control over Algeria and Tunis too. While Europeans were fighting each other, America was becoming stronger and stronger. Eventually, after the victory over Reichspakt, the Russians and French didn't quite understand each other, which led to another European war. MacArthur was standing on his position of attacking the socialist Spain and defeating the communists with Russians. After that, in July 1945, we entered a big European war against the communists. Well, first we needed to get rid of the potential enemies in Africa, which was only Morocco. We take out Morocco pretty quickly with our very strong divisions, and now our focus turned to Spain. We failed few naval invasions into Spain, but at the last time we make like a very big invasion there, and this turns out pretty well for us. We take Gibraltar, we take all of the important lands there, and we start pushing Spain. And the thing I did here is not, you know, pretty average in Kaiserreich, I just started pushing them with a battle plan. I was pretty confident in my military because we had the most technologically advanced divisions out of all countries. We had the most technologically advanced aircraft out of all of the countries, which well gave me a lot of confidence. And well, after we took out Spain, which was pretty hard because of the battle plan, we attacked France, which is the next country. But the French people, almost all of them, did not fight back, as French people and their military preferred to surrender to us rather than Russia, which was pretty understandable from that point. And after that we enter Switzerland and Italy. We also do a very good job there. We capture everything. Switzerland was pretty hard, to be honest, because our divisions were not trained to fight in mountains, but we still managed to pull it off. And the last thing we wanted to do was to make a naval invasion into Britain. Our first naval invasion fails miserably and our navy in the English Channel gets destroyed. But we also had Pacific Navy, which I also sent for the second round of naval invasion. This time there was no way this was not going to work because I sent probably 100 divisions into naval invasion, and this turns out horribly for United Kingdom. They get rolled by battle plan and they capitulate. And as expected, we won the war against them, dividing Europe into zones of influence with Russians. But nothing was over yet. MacArthur still remembered the Japanese takeover of Hawaii and denial of giving it back after the war. So while they and Chinese were focused on another war against Russia, our forces prepared naval invasion into Hawaii, which we attacked on December 1949 and by 1950 was under our control. We started our island hopping campaign to open way to Japan, and we actually reached Japan. And our naval invasion again started, which was pretty similar to the naval invasion into Britain. As you would guess, the Japanese did not really have that much troops in their homeland, which turned out pretty good for us because we managed to take Tokyo and very important lands before even their armies arrived. And well, it was pretty obvious that we will win, and that is exactly what happens. And we get forced peace with the Chinese. Of course, why this happens I don't really know, because Japanese were the faction leaders, the faction that China was into too. But thank to God, MacArthur has a magic power of avoiding truce and attacking anyway. And our divisions stacked up in Korea while Chinese were fighting against Russians, and we started our glorious liberation campaign in China. Very unexpectedly for me, Chinese troops turned out to be very shitty. Even though they did have modern tanks, or tanks just, they turned out to be very shitty. We took out Manchuria, we took Beijing, and we moved to Nanking, and taking few more important territories from the Chinese also capitulated. And we made a new government in China and also a new government in Japan too. After this, there was established the new order under the management of the United States of America and well, Russia too, we could say. And well, MacArthur established new American order, the American century, thing that nobody could have predicted 10 years ago. Thanks for watching. This was MacArthur's America. Like, subscribe, leave a comment below, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.